Hey friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. So I want to make a set of cards, and I want to use up some pattern paper and some cardstock I have in my stash. So I'm doing a little bit of stash busting here today. So this is a sentiment set called Welcome Spring from the Hedgehog Hollow. It's from their February subscription box, and it coordinates with the pattern paper that I have left over from that kit. And I went ahead and stamped some of the sentiments. I picked 4 sentiments that I wanted to use today and 4 pieces of pattern paper. So I stamped these with the Maker Forte Color Hive Eclipse black ink. Then I went ahead and I actually punched them out with a 2-inch circle punch, except for the one that was too long to do that. I just trimmed that down with my trimmer. I also cut down my pattern papers and pulled out some pieces of coordinating cardstock from my stash. So my card bases are 4 1/4 by 11. They're scored and folded at 5 1/2. My pattern paper is cut at 3 3/4 by 5, and my colorful cardstock I pulled out to coordinate with the papers is cut at 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm just simply going to layer all of these together, and I'm just going to use that liquid glue. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm keeping this really simple. This is a very simple card layout. I'm going to use the same layout for all 4 cards, and then I'm going to put them together with a ribbon, and maybe even put them in a cellophane bag and use them as a gift for someone. I love having little sets of cards around for gifts, and this will be a set of cards for someone who I know likes to send out cards but doesn't have time to make them. So one of the things I really like when I'm like, when sometimes you get packages of patterned paper and they have a lot of different patterns, and you're not quite sure what to do with them. This is a perfect card layout for that, because ordinarily I would start making a card by thinking about what kind of background I wanted to use for my card, and I might do a background technique of some sort if I decided I wanted something other than just plain cardstock, which sometimes I do want just plain cardstock. But since I have this pattern paper, the pattern paper is so cute. I love it. It's perfect for spring. I love the color scheme of this paper. Like, I love the pink, the yellow, green, the gray, and the black with a pop of white. I think it's just fabulous, and it feels like spring, and I feel like I just need those colors right now. So since this is pretty busy paper, I thought that I didn't want to distract anymore by adding a stamped image to this also. So I just cut the paper down, and it is going to be the focal point of my card. But I cut it down to 3 3/4 by 5 so that I could put a nice colorful mat to contrast behind it. I feel like for me that just helps it seem like that pattern paper is the focal point. Now, as I was trimming down papers from my scrap bin, I did have some like 1/2 inch strips or 1/4 inch strips, or some even smaller. I kept those strips because I'm going to add that strip right behind my sentiment. And I decided to, you see, I pulled out the last bit of that bright pink paper that I have, and I punched out a 2.5 inch circle so I can layer my sentiment on top of that circle, and it just makes the sentiment pop more, so it doesn't get lost in all of that pattern. And I use that leftover strip to actually just make it a nice detail, and I like the way that turned out. You can add sentiments, or you can add some like crown jewel gems to it so you have some sparkle, or some Nouveau drops. This is a good time to add the Nouveau drops. I'll do that at the end if I decide I want to. And I have one skinny little strip there, and I decided I'm going to add both of these strips. I'll just leave a little pattern paper showing through the other side, and I just need to trim this down. And I am trimming my pieces so they're the width of the colorful cardstock, not the pattern paper. And that way, if my like ends are trimmed a little tiny bit crooked, you're not going to notice because they blend right into that background. So that's just a little trick I do sometimes when I'm doing stuff like this. And sometimes I'll use this same layout, except like put the strips at the bottom along with the sentiment at the bottom. And I'm trying to get everything straight because I feel like super distracted by that black and white grid behind me. For some reason, I feel like it's just making it hard to see what's straight on my card. And I'm thinking I should have just pulled out like a piece of white paper and put it underneath and just covered it up when I was doing it. But instead, I just tried to really focus on the card. And I like the way that looks. That adds a little variation. So if I'm giving this to someone as a set of 4 cards, then they'll have a little bit of a variety there. And it makes it more interesting. And why throw those scraps away when I can use them for the cards in this way? Like, those little scraps work great. And I do the same thing when I'm doing scrapbook layouts. Those little bits get used and not wasted. At some point, I'll throw the little tiny scraps away, but only after I'm sure I can't possibly use them anymore. I don't know if you do that, but I have a whole like file full of scraps, and I always try to start with that when I sit down to get to work. When I know what I want to make and I'm looking at paper, I always try to pull out that scrap folder first, or that scrap file first, and see what I have that I can use in there. It's hard to do though, because I often forget about it because I love cutting into new pieces of paper. So this one it didn't fit inside my circle punch, so I'm just going to trim it down with my trimmer. And I also ran out of this pink strips, so I'm just going to cut one. And I made it about 1/4 inch, and then I'm just going to cut it down to the 4 inches so I can use it with, it'll, just like I've been doing the other ones, it'll actually line up with that pink cardstock, not the colored paper, along the right and left hand edge. And that piece will also get saved because that little bit below the circle, although I'll probably cut off the remnants of the circle and throw that part out. I will save that other little bit though. I really am, I don't think thrifty is the right word. And stingy isn't quite what I'm looking for, but I really am trying to use all the bits. It seems so wasteful just to throw them out. And I have to tell you, this subscription box that I got from the Hedgehog Hollow, I'll put the link to it below. You can't get this particular box anymore, I don't think. You could order the next one, and the next one looks really good. It's got a layered stamp set with tulips. But I love these boxes because they come packed with so much stuff. They have a lot of value. And this is the 4th set of cards I've made, and I still have more stuff. I still have more pattern paper, and I still have a stencil I haven't used. I've used both of the stamp sets and lots of the pattern paper, but I have not used the stencil yet. So please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel while you're here. Click that bell to get notifications every time I upload a new video. Thank you, friends, for stopping by.